are you? What are you doing?
We're live.
Whatever needs to be done.
She's on the 18 person text.
I'm
We're live.
Oh, hi everyone. We're live. Yeah, we're live. Hi everybody. I'm Kelly Fryer. I'm Arizona. What am I? I'm a candidate for governor of Arizona, and I'm here with some friends today to talk about education, public school education, public education in Arizona, and about a couple of important initiatives that are going to be on the ballot. I'm going to say going to be on the ballot this November. And I'm here with some friends, some of whom are teachers, and some of whom are organizers in this movement. And I'm here for two reasons, and thank you everybody for being here. And I'm going to stop talking to the camera in a minute and actually talk to you all. But, well, actually, I'm just going to say this. So, I'm thankful that you're all here. There are really two reasons to be here today. One is to talk about the Invest in Ed initiative and Prop 305 and why these are both so important. A lot of the people that I meet when I'm going around the state don't know enough about these two things, don't understand what they're about, and we reach a lot of people online. We're reaching 100 to 150,000 people a week just on Facebook. And so this is an opportunity to share information with a whole bunch of people who are at least paying attention to this race right now. And then the second reason for this is I know that there are some people who are still sitting on their ballots. And I think there have been about 400,000 ballots that have been turned in so far, that have been mailed in so far. But we're expecting there to be maybe 1 million or more. So there are more people who haven't voted in this primary that we're expecting to vote than have. And I have a feeling that there are a lot of people who are sitting with those ballots, and for the first time since 2002, have multiple options. This is something that Democrats anyway are not used to. And so I feel like there are a lot of people who are looking at their ballots going, oh my gosh, there are all these choices. Who are these people? And I want anybody who's looking at their ballot and wondering about what does this Kelly Fryer person think about education to know exactly where I stand on educational issues. So those are the two reasons that we're doing this today, and I'm so thankful that you're here because it's awful to just talk to a camera. Even though I love you all, and I'm glad that you're here with us, it's just this is so much easier. So anybody who is with us online, live, feel free to ask questions as we go. And Emma's behind the camera today, and we're on both Facebook and YouTube, which is the first. That's cool. So Emma, if you have questions, Emma will try to grab them and let us know what you're thinking about. So first of all, let's talk about Invest in Ed. And would you introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about why Invest in Ed? And you can talk to us if you want to. Okay. You can talk to me even. Just talk to us about what this is and why it matters.
Sure. So my name is Megan Mogan. I live here in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm a public educator here. I'm also a parent of 3 public school students in Tucson. And I'm here with a lot of my friends, fellow educators, parents, and I just want to thank you for hosting this town hall. I think it speaks to your candidacy for an Arizona for everyone, including every student in our state. For anyone that doesn't know what Invest in Ed is, it's an initiative, it's a ballot initiative that puts students in Arizona first. The initiative seeks to restore funding for our public education system. We moved the needle just a little bit this spring, but we've got a long ways to go after decades of deep cuts to our education system in Arizona. Even though we showed up July 5th with 270,000 signatures at the state capitol, we're still not on the ballot in November. So I repeat, we're not on the ballot yet. We will be. But like so many other movements that intend to work for all people who are up against corporations and special interests. You know a little bit about that? We're up against a lot of money. And so this past week, we did win a battle in Maricopa Superior Court with over complaints about the wording of the initiative, discrepancies in the printing of the ballots, and rules about strict compliance for the signatures. We won that battle in Maricopa County, but the opponents will likely appeal it up to the state Supreme Court. So in the meantime, I'm very optimistic about our initiative, mainly because we are out, a sampling of our petitions went out to county reporters' offices across the state, and we're coming in with very high signature verification rates, so that's good. But the main reason I'm optimistic is because a majority of Arizonans support the Invest in Ed initiative. They support a fully funded public education system in Arizona. So that's the main reason I'm optimistic, and I know so many others here are as well. This past summer, when I was collecting signatures for the initiative, I spoke to about 1,000 different Arizonans. And person after person after person said the same thing to me. It became not surprising at all. I thought you already got your raise. Wait a second, didn't you get raises? What about that plan that the governor keeps touting? And so if you listen to that 20 by 2020 narrative, it is not a permanent funding solution. It's not sustainable, it's not permanent. It's dependent on whatever legislature happens to be in. So it's not guaranteed in 2019. It's not guaranteed for 2020. Okay? It's also not comprehensive. It doesn't address the system that our public education system functions within. So part of that system includes salary increases for all staff. Right? I'm a speech language pathologist, that's my title. My administration and governing board decided to take Duce's plan at his intent. So they only gave salary increases to people who have the word teacher in their title. I work in a school with a 100% disability rate. So I want you to imagine the teacher's job and how important it is for he or she to have people like support staff, therapists, instructional aides, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, just for them to allow their student to have access to their public education. Right? It truly takes a village, and it takes the system around the educator to be funded. And so I want to see comprehensive, sustainable salary solutions for all educators, but I'm also a very competitive person. I want out of last place per pupil spending in our nation. We're in last place. So I'm in this for my own children, but I'm in this for my students, and that's the number one reason this initiative puts students in Arizona first. So I want to share with you, this week I kind of shared a little bit. My youngest daughter made this self-portrait on the first day of school last year. And if you can't see it, it's the face of someone who's pretty unsure, maybe a little scared. 4 years prior to her drawing this, her kindergarten teacher walked off the job in the first quarter of school. So her class of 5-year-olds was taught by a long-term substitute teacher. Okay, so it took her years, up until last year, to trust that her school year would be anything but chaotic, unpredictable, insecure. And so we think of our schools as these academic institutions, which they are, but they're also institutions where so many kids learn as an outcome of feeling safe, of feeling secure, of feeling like they're supported in their buildings, in their communities, in those buildings. If we can't keep teachers, because the system does not support them with things like current curriculum, professional development, with specialists, with time, in a proper learning environment, it doesn't matter what their salary is. It doesn't matter. They'll leave. And so the teacher shortage crisis impacted my family, but the reality is it impacts families in low-income schools at a rate 4 times greater than my family. It impacts families of English language learners at a rate 4 times greater than my family. And it impacts families who have kids with disabilities at a rate 4 times greater than my family. So, of course I want a qualified teacher in every classroom in Arizona for every kid in the state. And I mean every kid. So I want that teacher working with an assistant that funds all aspects of education. I will follow up. I went to my daughter's open house this past week at school, and there was another self-portrait. I was a little nervous at first, but she's fine now. All the students' portraits showed their faces wearing a pair of sunglasses, and the prompt was to draw a picture of what your future looks like. And so they had drawings in the reflections of the sunglasses. And my daughter, she had a calm face. And it was a picture in her sunglasses of her living her best life in a castle. And there was a drawing of her sitting down at a computer, and her teacher asked her what she was doing, and she responded, paying taxes. So I might mention she may have petitioned with me a little too much this summer. But my 9-year-old gets it, right? We get out of the system what we put into it. And we only put a little bit into it this spring. We have to put all of it in, and that's what Invest in Ed does. We round out the funding, it's comprehensive, and it puts the students in Arizona at the forefront. And so I just want to thank you, and thank you guys for learning more about Invest in Ed. There's lots of ways to get active. Like you can wear a vest on Fridays. Kelly and I are both sporting our vests today. Just to show that you're invested in a fully funded public education system. So vest on Fridays, red on Wednesdays. And we appreciate anyone's support, especially candidates who get out there and speak and spread the message.
That's awesome. And just in terms of the mechanics of the Invest in Ed ballot initiative, I mean, that was an amazing description of why it's needed. I mean, a really amazing description. Thank you. But the mechanics of it are that the Invest in Ed ballot initiative, if it's passed, will create 2 new state income tax brackets, right? One for people who make more than $250,000 a year, or a couple that makes more than $500,000 a year, and then another bracket for people who make more than $500,000 a year, or a couple that makes $1 million a year. I got that right? And that isn't going to impact me at all.
It's not going to impact 99% of
Right.
Arizona.
It's not going to impact anybody sitting around this circle. So we're talking about really not even the 1%, right? We're talking about how would you put it? Some fraction of the 1%. Folks that are really making, the top, the wealthiest people in our state. And what I like to remind people of is that these 2 income tax brackets, these new income tax brackets, all it's really doing is reversing the tax cuts that were made back in the 1970s. People back in the 60s and 70s paid a much higher state income tax rate than they do now. And in fact, the top earners right now pay roughly the same rate that they did back in 1933 when the state income tax was created in Arizona. So we're just reversing tax cuts that were given to the wealthiest people and putting that money back into our schools in a dedicated way, right? So thank you. I'm all for Invest in Ed. Invest in Ed. And we need to get that. That ballot initiative passed. Here's the deal: if we don't get it passed, there's no dedicated funding for our public school education. There is no guarantee that teachers are going to get those raises, and I don't believe they will.
I don't
So
either.
that's Invest in Ed. We have another important educational initiative on the ballot this year, and it's Prop 305. So we went yes on Invest in Ed, but introduce yourself, thank you for being here, and explain why we're voting no on Prop 305.
Thank you, Kelly. My name is Stephanie Hamilton, and I have spent the last year working on a very important issue. In the spring of 2017, the legislature passed into law a bill that would increase the empowerment scholarship accounts in the state of Arizona. And if we want to get to the nitty-gritty and the down and dirty, an empowerment scholarship, or an ESA, is simply a voucher that has circumnavigated the Arizona Constitution. Vouchers were ruled unconstitutional in the state of Arizona because it takes public tax dollars and puts it into funding for private schools, private religious schools. Our state constitution says that is illegal. Public tax dollars need to pay for public education. And so last year in the legislature, a bill was passed into law that the Empowerment Scholarship accounts would be increased to another 30,000 students. Now, the ESAs were initially created to serve students who required such high accommodations that their education would be prohibitive for their families. And so empowerment scholarships were set up so that students could receive the accommodations that they needed to have an education. But since the time that those empowerment scholarships were set up, they have since been broadened to include a whole lot of other students in a lot of different categories, and they aren't real true at this point to the spirit of what was initially passed into law. So when that law was passed, a group of concerned citizens formed a group called Save Our Schools Arizona, and they went to work to collect signatures. So probably a lot of you were asked to sign petitions last summer of 2017, to put on the ballot this initiative to stop that voucher expansion. It's not going to reverse what is already in law. It is going to stop an expansion. And we were told that it would not be possible, and the citizens of Arizona said, oh yes, it is possible, and we are going to do this. Enough signatures were collected so that through a year of this initiative and the signatures being sent to the courts and tied up in the courts for the better part of this last year, it was ruled and determined that the signatures were valid, and indeed our initiative, our referendum, would be given a proposition number, and that is Prop 305. And an easy way to remember this, because there are a lot of ways our state has determined they can defund public education, and the empowerment scholarships is just one of those ways. And so the easiest way to remember how to vote on Proposition 305 is that Proposition 305 is trying to repeal a law that is already in place. So 305 equals or is the same as ESA expansion. So what do we say to ESA expansion? We say no, and no thank you. We want to keep our public tax dollars in the public schools where there is accountability, and it's money that can be utilized to serve all of our learners, even our students who need the most accommodations. Our public school system is not even on life support at this point, and to take money that away from public school funding and funnel it into private school continues to poke holes in our funding system here in the state of Arizona. So I know it's hard when we think of education, we think, yes, we gotta go and vote for that. But in this case, Prop 305, we want to say no. That we do not want voucher expansions, the voucher expansion in our state. We want to keep our public tax dollars in the school. So if you encounter that question on your ballot, how do you vote on Prop 305? Your answer is a simple and quick no. Thank you.
You know, I think the point that you just made, Stephanie, that there are all of these different schemes to defund our schools and to privatize our school system, I think that's a really important point. Whether it's slashing taxes on wealthy people and big corporations to pull money out of our public school system, or it's taking money that's supposed to go to our public school system and put it into private schools using these vouchers. Or I'm going to say, this is my position, not everybody doesn't have to agree, but I believe that the effort to expand the charter school system in Arizona is also part of the effort to defund and dismantle our public school system. So I probably take a position as pro-public, local, district, public school education as you will possibly take. I think that the whole idea, and you know, the way it's sold to us is they call it school choice.
Can you say something about
Would
school
you please?
choice?
Yes, say something about school choice.
Thank you. In the state of Arizona, we already have a choice. And to single out choice as choosing private schools is a misnomer. We, right now, can choose to send our children to a different school within the district. There is a thing called open enrollment. I can choose to send my child to a different school, and in fact, when my neighborhood school closed, I open enrolled my children in another public school within our district. So I transport my children to that school every day. We can choose charter schools. We can choose to homeschool. I can choose private schools. I can choose private religious schools. I have those choices. What it comes down to, choice is not the issue. We've got many choices in front of us. What it comes down to is how we are spending those dollars. Who is paying for that education? Our Constitution says it is illegal to pay for a private education or a private religious education with our public tax dollars.
Right. Stephanie's on camera. Done. I think that's helpful. I mean, this idea we already have choice. Parents can send their parents can choose to keep their kids home and school them. The question is, where should our tax dollars go? And our tax dollars, my view is, our tax dollars should only go to support our local, and I'm going to say our local district public school. My view is that even, they're working to get around the Constitution to put public money into private schools, religious schools. It's a shell game. I mean, just to be clear, our Arizona State Constitution says that the state shall not fund private religious education. But my view is that they've also tried to make an end game in order to pay for private schools that are called charter schools, that they call public schools, but they're not really accountable to the public. That's the problem that I have with charter schools. They're not directly accountable to the public. You teach at a school that is not a local district school because it serves a very specialized population, but your school is being overseen actually directly by the state, more directly than any local district school, right? Because it's a commission of the state of Arizona. And so it's actually more accountable to the taxpayers than even the local district public school. But charter schools are not. Charter schools don't have to meet the same environmental standards as our local district schools are. They don't even have to test for lead in the water. They don't have to have certified teachers. They meet a completely different, we don't even, there isn't even transparency about where the money is being spent or how it's being spent to the state of Arizona. So I find it deeply problematic, and I think the whole charter school movement in Arizona is an end run to privatize our public school system, and I think that's really problematic. So that's a little bit more controversial position, and so I don't know and don't need to know whether or not I share that position with my friends here to the right. That is my position. So I just want to say a word about why I think public schools are so important. I grew up in Hammond, Indiana, northwest part of Indiana, this kind of gritty factory town. Very blue-collar family. My parents graduated from high school, from public high schools, and we all went to public schools. So I went to there was a 2-year little period during high school when I did not go to the local public high school because I spent 2 years in a novitiate, which is a place where you go to become a nun. That's a whole other story. I went back to the local high school, public high school. I know. Just try to picture it.
Right up there with the baton twirling years.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went back to and graduated from my local public high school, and I loved school. I got the best education in my local public high school. It was, in a lot of ways, it was like it was the safest place in my universe for me when I was growing up. My teachers were creative. I mean, everybody has bad teachers, right? Right, everybody, right, in every profession. But for the most part, my teachers were amazing and helped me in so many ways. When I was graduating from high school, I was in the top 10 of my class. And I was in the top 10 of my class. And I really wanted to go to college. And my mom wanted me to go to college. My dad at that point had passed away. But my mom had no idea how to help me get there. Nobody in my family had gone or graduated from college before. Like, I didn't even know how to apply, how to find an application. And so I went to my guidance counselor, and I told her that I really wanted to go to college, and I didn't know how. And she looked at me and she said, you know, Kelly, kids from this high school don't really go to college. Now, I knew that Glenn Reynolds and Rod Brown, who were also in the top 10 of my class, were already applying. So I think what she really meant was girls from this high school don't really go to college. So when I graduated from high school, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was thinking about maybe joining. Actually, my guidance counselor told me to join the Navy, which, given how many times I've been, well, actually, only no, yeah, no.
It would have gone as well as the division thing.
That's true, but not have been a good fit. So I graduated from school. I didn't know what I was going to do, and sometime that summer, I was outside in the yard, and my mom came outside. The phone had rang. She answered it. She came outside and she said, "Kelly, somebody named Dean Meyer is on the phone for you." And I said, "I don't know anybody named Dean Meyer." I didn't know it was the dean. Actually, the dean of the Honors College at Valparaiso University. And I went inside and I took the phone and I said, "Hey, Dean, what's up?" I had no idea. And he said you had an English teacher named Nancy Water, right? And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, Nancy did her master's with me here at Valpo, and she called me and told me about you. And if you want to come to Valpo, we have a scholarship for you." And so that's how I ended up going to college, because of the direct intervention of my high school English teacher, my public high school English teacher. And it is so clear to me that public schools are the path for every kid. The path for kids like me to have opportunity and to be able to succeed. All three of our kids went to public school, and they were not necessarily the easiest kids, you know.
What?
You know, Ethan is my youngest, is a really smart kid, but he was one of those kids that was full of energy and you know, yeah. And
All the teachers are
Emma,
nodding.
You know, Emma, also kind of a smart kid.
Kinda. I'm alright.
You know, she was the kid who would finish all of her tests and stuff first, and was embarrassed to take them up and be the first, and so she'd stick it inside of her desk and then fall asleep. And the boys in the class who were, you know, had the ability to learn quickly, they would cause trouble. And so they'd be like knocking their chairs over and acting up. And so they got special projects, and it was easy to miss that what was going on with Emma was that she was a kid that needed to be challenged. And so she ended up skipping a grade. And I guess the point I'm making is that we worked with our teachers to make sure that the kids at Kirsten had her own set of challenges, and we worked with our teachers in those public schools, and we were committed to those public schools. It never even occurred to me to take our kids out of that local public school and put them in some other school, we worked to make our schools better. And I think that what's happened in Arizona is that the system is making it easier and easier and easier for parents to choose other alternatives, and so that means we haven't had to work together. And at the same time, the system has been defunded. Our public schools, so our teachers, our schools don't have the resources that we need. Teachers aren't getting paid well enough, and the whole and I think it's on purpose. I don't think I'm alone in this, to dismantle that public school system until at the end of the day, the goal is no public schools, privatized education in Arizona, and I can't think of anything worse to happen. So that's kind of my approach, my philosophy. I think the best school for every kid in every neighborhood ought to be the local district public school. And there are some populations that have very, 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 very specialized needs. But that's not most kids. It's not most families. So that's my goal. I support InvestNet. I'm voting no on Prop 305. And I'm glad we have this opportunity to kind of talk about this. I'm wondering, are there any particular issues that are on your mind? Concerns that you have, questions that you have? Anybody that we should be talking about? Do we have any questions from anybody out there?
We do. We have a question on YouTube about, in addition to invest in ed, what would you do to either amend or get around Prop 108 to fund education?
Well, so Prop 108 Prop 108 was passed back in the 90s, and this is an example of how the leadership in the state is doing everything it can to make it almost impossible for us to fund the things that are important, not just education, but roads, economic development, social service programs. So Prop 108 was actually passed by voters back in the 90s, and what it did is it created this rule that the legislature can't raise taxes unless there's a 2/3 majority vote. They can cut taxes with a 50% vote, or with a majority vote, but they can't raise taxes without a 2/3 vote. So this is seriously problematic, because even if we have a majority of legislators who want to see us fund public education, it's going to be very difficult to do it. So I've actually have been calling for an effort to reverse Prop 108. I can't just do that as the governor. We need all of the teachers dressed in red in 2020 to get Prop 108 on the ballot and to reverse that proposition. Now, why did people vote for it? I think it's because people don't trust the leadership in this state. That's why, right? Plus, I think we were all bamboozled, But it has created a serious deficit. So we need to reverse Prop 108, because there are all kinds of tax cuts that have been made over the last several decades. There was a capital gains tax cut in 2012 that overnight cut about $500 million out of our budget, money that should be going to our public schools. And there are a variety of corporate tax cuts that have been made. All of their, the voucher programs for private schools. If we got rid of that, that would be considered a tax cut, because it would be raising people's taxes. And so all of these issues, our hands are tied until we reverse Prop 108. That was a long answer, sorry.
So how would you respond as governor to an anti-Red for Ed state legislature, and if Invest in Ed doesn't pass and AZ educators want to push and maybe even walk out again to secure sustainable public education funding? So what would you do?
So if Invest in Ed doesn't pass, it has to pass. It has to pass. We all have to do everything we can possibly do to get InvestNet passed. So I don't know if you know this, but my career has been spent in leading organizations as a senior pastor, as a CEO of nonprofit organizations, and kind of my area of specialty is working with dysfunctional organizations. Organizations that are in some kind of crisis or in some kind of need. And I discovered that in my very first congregation. And one of the things that, and so I spent 29 years doing this work. I've actually taught this work. I was recruited to start a program in leadership at the Lutheran Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, to teach other leaders. Tan and I and a third business partner, we owned a consulting company, and we worked with leaders across the United States and Canada, teaching them how to do this work. So I have a little bit of experience working with dysfunctional systems, and that is what the state of Arizona is right now. It's a dysfunctional system. So in answer to the question, how would I work with an anti-Red for Ed legislature, or with a legislature that is, I'm going to say, anti-Arizona? You know, the first thing, there are two main kind of tools that you use in a dysfunctional system. First of all, you need to have, as soon as we've got new leadership, we need quick wins, right? We need quick wins, because all the healthy people in the system have been so beaten up by the dysfunction in the system that we all need to, like, it's like a wake up call, you know, that it's a new day and there's new leadership and there are new possibilities. And so every day this month I've been sharing, live streaming a different part of my plan for my first 100 days. And the reason I have a plan for my first 100 days is so that we can take very quick action to create change. I'm going to sign 7 executive orders within those first 100 days, and I'm going to create 9 different boards and commissions to move my agenda forward. One of those executive orders will have to do with public education. And there are different planks in that executive order. There'll be things like requiring all charter schools to meet the same environmental standards as the local district public schools, requiring them all to test for lead in the water. These are things that I can do by executive order that will send a clear signal to the system that there's a new sheriff in town, and that it's that we're going to create change. So this is one of the important things, because it begins to really coalesce all the healthy people in the system that want to create change. The second thing that you have to do is you have to deal with the bullies in the system. Stephanie, you probably know this from leading congregations, right? Not that every congregation has bullies, sorry, but in every dysfunctional system, there are bullies. There are people in the system that have been beating up on and suppressing the healthy people in the system. In my very first congregation, because I was a pastor for 15 years, in my very first congregation, the bully's name was Marvin. Like, for real. In Arizona, the bullies in our system are in our Arizona state legislature. And Kathy Herod at the Center for Arizona Policy and people at the Goldwater Institute, these are the bullies in the system. And so what we need to do is we need to coalesce the healthy people of influence within the system, and coalesce that power and use it to lean on the bullies, to make them either get in line or get out of the way. And so that's not going to be hard in Arizona, because we have, 15,000 people dressed in red, and we got all these moms in the Save Our School movement in yellow, and we have all the March for Our Lives students dressed in orange. and we have the 40,000 women that marched in the women's marches, and we have immigrant rights activists, and we have Black Lives Matter. I mean, we even have scientists out there marching. And so, one of the things that I will do if we have a distinctly uncooperative legislature is to make that platform as big as it can possibly be. We need an intersectional movement of activists in our state who are supporting each other's movements, and with me in the governor's office, that movement is going to have the biggest possible platform and the biggest possible microphone. I mean, think about how much got done without having support in leadership. Imagine how much more powerful we will be with the governor's microphone, the governor's platform, the governor on TV and on radio and talking every single day about this legislature and what they need to do. And if they don't get in line and pass the kinds of tax increases that we need, if Invest in Ed doesn't pass, we're going to make the legislature pass it. And if they don't, every single one of them is going to be voted out in the very next election.
So we're a couple minutes away from 5 o'clock.
Okay. Do you all have any, did you come today with a question? Yes? Yeah. Anything you're wondering about? Or that you've heard, that you're thinking, what does Kelly think about X? Or what can we all do?
Who will be on your education commission?
Who will be on my education commission? People who are committed. So one of the cool things that the governor gets to do is to appoint people to all these different boards and commissions. And right now, every single board and commission is stacked with people who represent big corporate interests, private interests, they're lobbyists, and they're, I'm going to say, political cronies. And so the number one characteristic that the people that I appoint to all the commissions will be that they're committed to the value of people first. That the people of Arizona come before anything else. They're also going to be smart and effective, which we don't necessarily have, but be competent. But I think specifically, when we're talking about education, we need public school teachers. We need parents of public school students. We need administrators from public schools, not people who are actually profiting from the private school and the charter school system in Arizona. That would be first. Are you volunteering?
As long as all the meetings are after 4.
Well, you actually make a good point. One of the executive orders that I'll be signing has to do with civic engagement and voter rights. And I haven't talked about this yet in my everyday live stream, but I'm going to require that at least half of the meetings that our boards and commissions have are held outside of the state capitol, out in the community, and they're either held in the evening or on weekends. All these decisions are being made in secret, at a time when the public can't attend, and I'm going to require that they all be captioned and that they be bilingual, that there be captioned in Spanish, so that everybody can see what's going on.
Access to engagement.
Access, right. Any other questions?
We do have more questions, but we are at 5 o'clock. So we can go for a few more minutes and people can stay or we can chat. Let's do one more. How would you make charter schools more accountable?
Oh, good question. So in that executive order that I'm going to sign, this is something I can actually do unilaterally as the governor. So I'm looking to take the most assertive possible role that I can to use every power available to the governor's office and every tool that I have to move and create change, no matter who's in the legislature. So in that first executive order about education, I'm going to lay out a 3-year plan to hold charter schools accountable. In year 1, we're going to create a list of criteria that charter schools have to meet. And at the top of the list is going to be that the charter school has to be meeting a need that the local district school can't meet right now at this point, for a good reason. So number one, we're going to create a set of criteria. I'm going to give the group a year to do that. In year two, we're going to evaluate every single charter school in the state. And at the end of that second year, any charter school that is not meeting that criteria is going to be put on notice. And they're going to be given a year to come into compliance. And at the end of that third year, if they are not in compliance, if they haven't met that criteria, we're going to withdraw the charter. So my goal is to make charter schools transparent, accountable, and fair. My hunch is that as soon as we start even talking about this, and we start taking these actions so that they have to, measure up to the same environmental standard, my hunch is that the charter schools that are only here for the sake of making somebody rich are going to start they're going to start leaving the state, closing up shop, and going to some other state where nobody's paying any attention. And I don't want all the parents out there who have their kids in charter schools to be afraid, because A, we're going to do this in a very methodical and thoughtful way, and everybody's going to have time. And at the same time that we're doing that with charter schools, we're going to be investing in our local district public schools and giving them resources so that they can be providing the services that parents think they're not getting right now. So we're going to do it in a very thoughtful, methodical way. But B, parents don't, if all of a sudden these charter schools say, we don't want to deal with all this regulation, we're closing up shop, those parents are going to know that those schools are not actually in it to meet the needs of their students. And I think parents deserve to know that. So that's my plan. Thank you so much. So we're actually, we have a second event tonight, and we're going to be starting at about 6 o'clock this evening, down on the south side of Tucson. And we're going to be live streaming, and we're going to be talking specifically about economic inequity in Arizona, criminal justice reform, and we're going to be talking about border issues and immigration. And so if you all have been watching and you still have more questions about education, first of all, sign up to get my live streams every day, because I'm talking about these issues every day this month. Go to my website, because I have a complete plan on education on my website, FryerForArizona.com. But also you can join us on the next live stream and ask your questions there, and we'll try to get to them. I'm so thankful to all of you for being here today, for teaching our kids, for caring about our kids, for organizing voters and getting voters to do the right thing. So one more time, vote yes for Invest in Ed, vote no on Prop 305, and not only vote, but tell all your friends about this. Share information. What's the website for Prop 305?
No Prop 305.
That's easy. So it's noprop305.com, and we don't just look up Invest in Ed Arizona and Google it and find the website and share it with all your friends. And let's get this done. I'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.